Welcome everyone, this is Madame Morbs and I have some creepy stories for you today. It was always my dream to travel to Niagara Falls. When I got married, my husband and I didn't have time to have a proper honeymoon. For our 5th anniversary, he surprised me with a trip to Canada and we stayed in a hotel overlooking the falls. It was an absolute dream come true. We spent hours just staring at the views from our hotel room. We had both the American and Canadian view of the falls, and it was everything I had always wanted. I could feel the vibration of the falls even from the hotel. It was literally a dream come true. For years I had dreamed of this exact scenario. In the dreams, I could never make out what my husband looked like. There was always just a handsome man in the background of my imagination. As I stared at my husband, I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. At night, we went down to the falls and walked around. The roar of the water and the proximity of the spray was exhilarating. That night we went to sleep with the white noise and the falls drumming beyond the window pane. I was back into a familiar dream where I could feel the spray of the water on my face and feel the power of the water in the trembling of the stones beneath my feet. My heart was beating fast as I got closer and closer to the falls. I started to get scared and look around for my husband when I suddenly woke up. It had all been a dream, but my face was wet. I blinked and realized I was wearing my night clothes, but I wasn't in bed. My husband wasn't next to me. I was on the wet rocks next to the falls. Somehow I had made it out of the hotel, down the incline, and over the protective railing. I was standing on the slippery rocks, feet away from the churning water. I began trembling hard and almost slipped in. There was nobody around. Nobody would have seen me go in. Nobody would have known what happened to me. I climbed back over the railing and started the cold walk back to the hotel. I managed to slip back into the room and back into bed without my husband waking up. I didn't go back to sleep, just held onto him. In the morning, he felt the damp and thought that I had maybe had a fever in the night. I simply agreed, and when he suggested we head home early, I told him I thought it was a good idea. I don't know what it was that happened that night. I have never sleepwalked before or since. Whatever called me to the falls, I almost didn't make it home alive. I still dream about climbing over the railing, walking out onto the rocks, staring into that churning water. I will keep that experience to my dreams, though. It might be a surprise that one of my biggest bucket list items involves a boat, since I don't really like water. But when I was in Niagara Falls, I wasn't going to miss out on the Maid of the Mist tour. Did I partly do it for the pictures and to be able to say that I did? Yes. But it was still a fun thing to do, and I got lucky that it was a beautiful, warm day. I put on the poncho and got to a good spot on the deck. I was enjoying watching the crowds above on the viewing points and wondering how many pictures I would be in the background of when I noticed something strange. There was a woman standing on the rocks near a viewing platform. It was definitely a place nobody should have been standing, and she would have had to climb down to where she was. Her clothes weren't that of a parks employee either. She was wearing what looked like a brown wool skirt and a dark blue sweater. Although we weren't close enough to the falls to get really wet, there was still a misty sheen of water on everything. The rocks looked wet and like it would be easy for her to slip down to the rough water below. What was really weird was that nobody on the viewing platform seemed to notice her. None of the park employees seemed to see her, though she should have been in view. She didn't move, just stood there staring out. I kind of felt like she was staring at me, though she was too far away to really be able to tell. I got a bad feeling. I kept wondering what the woman was doing and why nobody else was reacting to seeing her out where she shouldn't be. Finally, it just seemed like a good idea to move to the other side of the boat and try and concentrate on enjoying the experience. So that's what I did, and the experience was really cool. The waves crashing down were slightly terrifying, and the roar and mist were intense. The boat began to turn, and I was kind of sad that we were already headed back, though I was excited to go sit in the sun and let my shoes dry out. When I was looking around, I experienced an unpleasant shock when my eyes landed on the woman again. It took me a second, but with a horrifying unease, I realized she had moved. She was down on the rocks, even closer to the falls, but on the opposite side from where she had been. There was no way she could have made it down there. My brain really struggled to even make sense of what I was looking at. But it was the same brown wool skirt and heavy sweater, too warm for the warm day. She was soaked with water, her stringy hair stuck to her face. It was like I could feel her staring at me, and I started to shake. I moved away, putting other people on the boat in front of me, but it was like I could still feel the woman's presence. The whole time I was trying to justify how she could have gotten down to the bottom of the rocks in the first place, not to mention how she had moved positions so quickly. I wondered if it was a prank, but as I looked around, I realized nobody else was reacting to her. I barely remember the rest of the boat journey. I was frantic to get off the boat and head back to my hotel. As we were lining up to disembark, I overheard a woman insisting to her husband that she had seen someone down on the rocks. He insisted back that he hadn't noticed anyone, and that nobody could get down there. When the woman turned and locked eyes with me, something on my face gave away my feelings. "You saw it too," she said, and it wasn't a question. There was relief that I wasn't the only one, but then this horrible fear stole over me. It hadn't been a weird figment of my imagination. Someone else saw it too. I grew more and more uncomfortable. Suddenly, it felt like something was standing right behind me. The idea of turning around to look to see what was there became an unbearable urge that filled me with terror. The woman's husband grabbed her arm, but she was still staring at me, waiting for me to corroborate her story. I opened my mouth to do just that, but what came out was, "Don't talk about it." I wasn't sure why I said that, but as soon as I did, I was glad that I had. "Don't talk about it," the woman said, and sighed like I had given her the answer she was looking for. And I haven't talked about it. I try not to think about it at all. But lately, I've been dreaming about it. And the dreams will pop back into my mind while I'm out running errands, and no matter what I do, I can't shake the image of the woman standing, soaking wet, staring at me. Then I saw her again. I spotted her as I drove home from a hike. She was standing on a rock outcrop, staring out towards the road. I know it was her. I'm trying everything I can to avoid thinking about it. So I thought about writing it all down to purge it from my mind. And I was hoping that telling you about it might help me. You can picture her in her heavy woolen skirt, sodden with water, sweater clinging to her, hair pasted to her face. If you can picture her, maybe you'll see her, so I won't have to. My excitement to be traveling to Niagara Falls for a work assignment was off the roof. Not only had I booked my first travel writing gig, but I was traveling to a destination I had always wanted to visit. I had vague memories of visiting as a kid, but my parents wouldn't spring for a hotel room that overlooked the falls. And then my younger brother got the stomach flu, and we ended up going home early. This time, I was staying in a room overlooking the falls, and I had a list of restaurants and bars to check out for my assignment. When I checked into the hotel, there was a bit of a weird situation where the concierge welcomed me back. I replied that I had never stayed there before, and he just looked at me like he was confused before he laughed and said that I was funny. What resulted was a strange conversation where no matter what I said, he seemed to think I was messing with him, and was under the impression that he had seen me recently. I finally gave up and figured it was someone who looked a lot like me, and since he was being friendly, the person didn't seem so bad. I got settled into my hotel room and was getting ready to head out for the night when the phone rang. It was the hotel restaurant asking if it was okay that a guest put their tab on my room number. I let them know I was the only guest staying in the room, and that whoever was trying to charge my room must have the wrong room number. They thanked me and hung up. It was a weird situation, but I forgot all about it as I finished getting ready. As I was grabbing my purse to head out, there was a loud banging on my hotel room door. The knocking was so aggressive that it scared me, and I paused before heading over to look through the peephole. There was nobody there, just an empty hallway. Part of me wondered if whoever was trying to charge something to my room had come to yell at me, but that didn't really make sense. Why would a stranger try to charge something to my room and get mad that I didn't let them? I gave it a minute, and then I left my room and went down to the bar. As soon as I walked up to the bar, the bartender gave me a huge grin and welcomed me back. I was so confused by this and asked him what he meant since I had never been there before. He laughed and said I was just there. After the travel and stress of the day, I didn't want to get into it, so I just introduced myself and sternly told him that I had just checked in and had never been to the bar before. He didn't seem to believe me, but he offered to make me a drink. I held out my card to pay, and he looked at me funny, explaining that we had just talked about how the machines were down. The only way to pay was to charge to the room number. I said okay and to do that, and he looked at me strangely again. He said he would have to call the room to make sure it was okay. I was confused and told him I was the only one staying in the room. He called the front desk and they called up to the room. When he got off the phone, he told me that someone answered in the room and said that I wasn't staying there. At this point, I was sure that he was messing with me. I really wanted the drink, but I was done messing around. I said to forget it. He offered me the phone and said to call up to my room. I didn't understand what he was saying, but he seemed really serious. He said to make sure there wasn't someone in there. I left the bar and hurried back to my room. Everything happening made me feel kind of crazy, and I wasn't convinced that the staff wasn't messing with me, but I couldn't figure out why they would. When I got to my room, my key wouldn't unlock the door. As I stood there in confusion, I heard a voice on the other side of the door call out hello. I could see the shadow of someone looking through the peephole. I got a creepy feeling and started to back away from the door. It stressed me out to think about my laptop and passport being in the room with a stranger, but if there was someone in my room, I wasn't going to be the one to get them out. As I was moving away, trying to figure out what was going on, there was a loud pounding on the inside of the door. I bolted, didn't even wait for the elevator, just started charging down the stairwell. I made it 2 flights when the door to the floor I'd come from slammed open. I can't even describe how fast I moved. It was like I blacked out and my only thought was making it to reception. When I burst out of the stairwell, I must have looked a fright. Everyone turned to stare and I was out of breath and sweaty, practically limping to the front desk. I explained everything, and as the person behind the desk was looking at my reservation, they got a freaked out expression on their face. From there, it was a whirlwind of activity as security went to get my stuff and help me move to a new room. Nobody would explain what was going on, but the little I gathered from overhearing snippets of conversation was that nobody was supposed to be put in the room that they put me in. At some point, I just stopped asking questions. They comped my room and gave me a free dinner every night at the restaurant. I didn't use it though. I completed my assignment as quickly as possible. My new room was nice, but I couldn't enjoy it. I had horrible dreams and kept waking up feeling like someone else was in the room with me. I have the feeling something passed too close for comfort, but I don't even understand what happened. Now, I'm more careful when I travel. I've learned to leave situations that don't feel right. Life is too short to take those kinds of chances.